InvestorIdeas.com podcasts.
Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of InvestorIdeas.com podcast. Today's podcast is sponsored by Cannabis Swiss Corporation, trading on the OTC as CSUI, a fully licensed cannabis cultivation and distribution company in Switzerland for recreational tobacco products and medical CBD oils. In today's podcast, we're going to be looking at a few public company announcements from 48 North Cannabis Corporation, trading on the TSX Venture as NRTH. Also looking at a Free Incorporated, trading on the TSX and the NASDAQ as APHA. CURLF Holdings Incorporated, trading on the CSE as CURA and the OTCQX as CURLF, as well as Bevcan Enterprises Incorporated, trading on the CSE as BEV and the OTCQB as BVNNF. So first today, starting with 48 North Cannabis Corporation, who announced the launch of its newest brand, Latitude. Now, Latitude builds on the successful 2018 launch of LAT, an interactive omni-channel platform that empowers women to connect, engage, and share their personal stories with cannabis. And today, using the momentum of LAT's second edition, 48 North is pleased to announce that the platform will be expanding into 48 North's newest cannabis brand, Latitude. Now, 48 North has heard clearly from the LAT community that there is so much more the nascent Canadian cannabis industry can do to support the multi-dimensional experiences that Canadians seek with the plant. As the company reflects on 2 years of legalization, this bold step forward will provide customers with new ways to reset, rejuvenate, and live well. And Latitude looks forward to launching products in a variety of different categories, ranging from sexual wellness to beauty and beyond. The cannabis industry in Canada is rapidly evolving, from dried flower and vape products to bath salts and intimacy oils. As consumers become more educated, they are collectively beginning to push their imaginations on the possibilities of what the cannabis plant can provide. Now, the launch of Latitude is emblematic of this shift, and we look forward to sharing this journey to high-frequency living with our customers, said Kirsten Gauthier, the CMO of 48 North. Our members and loyal subscribers have been waiting for this brand to take flight, and now is a better time than ever to do so. And after filled with anxiety, stress, and uncertainty, Latitude products are designed to rejuvenate both the mind and body, giving us the latitude to live well, continued Kirsten. Now, Latitude will be launching this fall with the following products. So there will be a Sex Pot Intimacy Oil. That will be natural oils infused with THC, the Night Shift Glang Charcoal Bath Salts, which will be charcoal-infused Black Sea and Epsom salts, which will be combined with THC and CBD, and In Bloom CBD Lavender Chamomile Bath Salts, which will be floral soak of pink Himalayan and Epsom salts infused with botanical goodness of lavender, chamomile, and CBD. Now, Latitude products will leverage 48 North cannabis grown at the Good Farm, the company's 100-acre outdoor cannabis facility, which is currently being transitioned into Canada's first organic regenerative cannabis farm. And in addition, Latitude products are vegan, never tested on animals, and organically sourced wherever possible. So we saw this kind of early on with legalization, which was focused on feminine products as well as sort of sex, health, and wellness products. Didn't see it take off to an aggressive state, whether in the US or Canada. I do think that this is going to start showing up more, though, in the Canadian rec market. Obviously, there's been lots of people looking for bath salts. That's an obvious one. I think you're going to see a lot more of those types of options from pretty much every company, not just 48 North, as well as, again, having the intimacy oils, massage oils, things of that nature. I do think you're going to see more and more of that. And it's a really underserved element of the Canadian recreational market right there, as they did so obviously point out from 48 North Cannabis with Kirsten Gauthier there. So I do think that this is a trend that you're going to see pick up more aggressively. Also, kind of a neat note to note that their Good Farm is going to be focused on being organic and regenerative. Obviously, again, this is something that the cannabis industry has had a real difficulty with and has had a lot of backlash from, which is, again, their environmental impact, which is significantly either as much or at least around the same ballpark as some of the farming we've seen in the past and some of the industrial expansion we've seen. So in general, they haven't done the greatest job of sort of reducing their environmental impact. It is nice to see that 48 North is going to be transitioning that 100-acre outdoor facility to a regenerative cannabis farm. And the success of that will definitely be something that hopefully other producers take note of and hopefully other outdoor growers start to implement into their strategies moving forward. Next, looking at APHA Incorporated, who today reported its financial results for the first quarter ended August 31st. Our strong first quarter results reflect the continued robust growth and development of APHA's adult use cannabis brands in Canada, said Irwin D. Simon, the chairman and chief executive officer. We're consistently taking a diversified approach to our innovation, strategic partnerships, global expansion, and corporate citizenship to fuel sustainable long-term growth. Now, we believe that the strength of our balance sheet and cash position, combined with our consistent focus of our high return priorities, will generate sustainable long-term value for our stakeholders. And some of the key operating highlights you can read in the article, but to list a few, they did have their record gross revenue for adult use cannabis of $69.6 million in the first quarter, which was an increase from 23%. Net cannabis revenue 62.5, an increase of 103% from the prior year quarter, and a net revenue of $145.7 million, an increase of 16% from the prior year quarter, and a decrease of 4% from the prior quarter, solely due to lower distribution revenue driven by the COVID-19 global health crisis. And again, you can sort of look through the rest of the highlights there. But in general, following the same trends we've seen in the past, big buildup of the stock price leading up to the announcement today, and then a huge drop off, about 20% drop of sell-off this morning. Very much following the standard release of financial results that we've seen in this industry so far. And again, showing pretty much consistently the same type of numbers we've been seeing over the last couple of months, which is steady growth. In general sales, we have seen an uptick. Cannabis sales don't seem to be dissipating, and I wouldn't expect them to over the winter, as a lot more people are unfortunately going to be probably stuck at home again, and you will probably see a big spike, as that will be what people have done in the past. So in general, this is showing that APHA is pretty much on the same path that a lot of these companies are on right now. Again, seeing some growth, but also having some difficulties as well due to COVID-19. But in general, I do think it's going to be a pretty good year for the rest of them, for sales at least in general, but there are other issues to take into consideration. Next, looking at CURLF Holdings, who announced today the launch of its latest collection of vape cartridges, the CURLF Live Blends, in Florida. Now, the first of its kind product in the industry, Live Blends are formulated with a proprietary blend of live and botanical terpenes that deliver a flavor and experience not seen before. Now, by combining the benefits of live terpenes and the flavor of natural botanicals, CURLF Live Blends provide a optimized experience in both taste and effect. And each cartridge combines the strain-specific solventless terpene extract of freshly harvested cannabis with a microinfusion of botanical terpenes. And this unique process results in the cleanest and broadest spectrum of live terpenes and other fragrant cannabis compounds. And the premium distillate features an enhanced experience in flavor and result. Now, Florida is the first market in the country to offer our premium Live Blends product, as we aim to help a wider group of patients find relief through these flavorful and efficient cartridges, says Joe Bayan, the president of CURLF. Now, our patient-first approach to the R&D process has garnered positive reviews from our recently debuted Nano Drops, first to Florida market sublingual tablets, and Select Elite Live cartridges that launched in the state earlier this year. And we're proud to debut another innovative product to the patients of Florida. Now, Live Blend products feature fruitier and more approachable flavor profiles that are expertly paired with strains for an optimal consumption experience. And CURLF Live Blends are launching 5 unique hybrid strains to medical patients across the state to start, with additional combinations to debut in the coming months. And Florida is a fast-growing medical cannabis market. Currently, there are more than 420,000 medical patients enrolled in the Florida program, and about 1.7% of the state's population, with approximately 5,000 new patients joining each week. And Live Blends is the 4th product to enter CURLF's Florida medical market this year, after the sublingual tablets, the Select Elite Live cartridges, and CURLF Nano Drops. So CURLF continuing to do really well in the Florida markets. All of their products that were listed there have actually been received quite well by the Florida medical cannabis community, and I do think that that's going to continue to be their market they're focused on and obviously dominating within. Obviously, they are a multi-state operator. They're in other states, but I think for at least their more advanced medically focused products, Florida has been doing really well for them as far as a launch pad to then test out into other markets. And in general, having all those patients signed up and part of the CURLF program within Florida is really helping them collect a lot of the data and information on what consumers are liking and how to better release more effective products. And I think right now they're definitely well ahead of some of their competitors when it comes to having really futuristic or next generation style products available with very different taste and efficacy styles than we've seen in the general market today. And especially for them in a global medical market, I think they have a lot of potential with their products to launch into different areas, whether into Canada or into different states, and even in the global space. I think they're going to be well positioned for the future to have some really well played and well tested products that they can then put into any market and will be received quite well. Lastly, today looking at BevCanna Enterprises, who provided an update today on their partnership with the award-winning Keef Brands. Now, this partnership positions BevCanna very well for the rapid growth within the U.S. market in anticipation of positive federal regulatory reform with the U.S. federal cannabis legislation. Now, BevCanna's North American agreement with Keef Brands leverages the strength of both companies to full advantage. BevCanna will act as the exclusive licensee, manufacturing, and distribution partner to the award-winning U.S. line of Keef-infused beverages for the Canadian market, and the company will leverage the extensive Keef U.S. manufacturing and distribution network to access the U.S. cannabis market, which includes more than 1,000 dispensaries and delivery services across multiple states. This partnership with Keef Brands is a fantastic opportunity for BevCanna, said John Campbell, the Chief Strategy Officer for BevCanna. Keef's robust U.S. manufacturing and distribution network will be a significant asset to BevCanna's expansion plans in the U.S., and BevCanna's expertise in the Canadian infused beverage market will build Keef's Canadian presence. It's a strong combination with excellent potential for both companies, and Keef Brands currently offers 6 of the top 10 selling cannabis beverages in Colorado, as well as 3 of the top 10 selling in California. And Keef Brands ranks second in the U.S. in units sold among all cannabis beverage companies. And as more clarity develops around cannabis regulations in global jurisdictions, including the U.S., BevCanna will leverage the extensive network that propelled Keef Beverages to its position as the number 2 beverage brand to scale distribution to their ready-to-launch house beverage brands, Anarchist Mountain and Groove. So really the big point to me mentioning this article is that BevCanna, along with many other companies that have sort of a Canadian and U.S. partnership between the two companies, have really been pumping the gas that there's going to be potential U.S. change to federal cannabis legislation. There has been multiple politicians who have come out with the fact that they would support some sort of cannabis legislation reform this year, depending on who is elected, obviously. But it's definitely interesting to note that this isn't the only company who has been pumping the gas and hyping up the possibility that there could be massive change within federal regulation for U.S. cannabis industry. And in general, you are starting to see a lot more optimism surrounding that concept. I don't know whether there's going to be any possibility for actual federal legalization of cannabis, but there could be at least a descheduling, or what a lot of people are really looking forward to, which is a push forward of the Safe Banking Act to allow these companies to have access to public markets and safe banking, which could then bring in a lot of the main capital investors into this sector. That's been something we've talked about in many of the interviews that you can check out in the past, especially with Matt Markevich from the Cannabis ETF. He's discussed that many times, that that's going to be more or that is what many are hoping is the more likely outcome, is that at least banking will be accessible. But again, we've seen this from a few of the larger companies. Even Cannabis Growth has mentioned at least its excitement or the potential of entering into the U.S. markets this year through acreage. So it's just interesting to note that a lot of these companies that have that sort of U.S.-Canadian relationship are now really excited and, again, making plans, or at least making strategies for the potential of finally being able to utilize the infrastructure they've built out between these two countries and be able to access both markets fully and utilize each other's distribution and manufacturing capabilities moving forward. I don't know whether, again, that's going to be a reality within the next year, but depending on the election, it could definitely swing in favor of the cannabis industry, which could provide a lot of needed capital to this sector. And that would be an aggressive boom for most of the companies that are poised for this type of operation. So definitely something to pay attention to. Obviously, I think everyone's going to be paying attention to the U.S. elections this year regardless, but there's an extra little bit of incentive to pay attention with the potential for how much this could impact the cannabis industry over the next coming years, and how much you could see a massive boom for some of these stocks depending on where things land. That's all for today's podcast. And once again, today's podcast is sponsored by Cannabis Swiss Corporation, trading on the OTC as CSUI, a fully licensed cannabis cultivation and distribution company in Switzerland for recreational tobacco products and medical CBD oils. That's all for today's podcast. Podcast is now a certified word trademark on the blockchain through Cognate Incorporated CM certification. InvestorIdeas.com podcasts are also available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play Music, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and TuneIn. If you'd like to be a guest or sponsor of this podcast, please contact InvestorIdeas.com. Investor Ideas reminds all listeners to read our disclaimers and disclosures on the InvestorIdeas.com website, and this podcast is not an endorsement to buy products or services or securities. Investors are reminded that all investments involve risk and possible loss of investment. Investor Ideas does not condone the use of cannabis except where permissible by law. Our site does not possess, distribute, or sell cannabis products.